The Protagonist Part 2. Appearance. The protagonist character is a humanoid creature. The most significant difference between him and a human is that his torso lacks any skin and reveals a slightly different organ and bone structure. His lungs are exposed to the elements and have 6 holes within them. He uses his left hand to interact with the machinery around him. This hand is pierced with a specialized biomechanical key that caused some bleeding at first, because this special, hidden blade key gets fused with his skin. Depending on the trailer, his arms and hands would either be stripped of skin or would have it with artificial etchings and engravings within them. His face is similar to a human's in the sense that he has eyes and a nose, but lacks ears and a mouth entirely. Additionally, the skin on his face does not cover the whole head, leaving the sides, the back, and mouth area covered in thick red flesh. In game as well as concept art, he is shown to have an external reproductive organ that folds upward against his abdomen while not in use. The host's body changes the longer the parasite travels with him. At several points, spiky tendrils grow out of the host's legs and arms. The chest of the host gets torn open more and more as well. Personality. The host seems to be a rather uncaring humanoid. This is shown in the way he treats the little mole man he frees earlier in the game. If he releases the mole man from his shell, he forces the arm-into-arm device that gives him a biomechanical key to open a door. Afterward, he forces the mold man into the device that opens the door. Once the door is open, the host abandons the mold man. The first protagonist is seen crawling across the ground, attempting to reach a tall structure in the distance before they fall into a ravine. Awakening inside of a decrepit underground facility. Navigating the corridors, the protagonist acquires a biomechanical key that is fused onto his arm, and a door that requires 2 people to open. Finding a storage facility, he removes a mold man from the wall, being given 2 options for how to release him from his shell: a saw and scoop device. By using the scoop, it will kill the mold man and sever his left arm. But with the saw, he is removed from the shell unharmed and follows the protagonist. Regardless, the protagonist grafts a key onto the moldman's arm and uses it to open the 2-man door in order to progress. He eventually comes across a tool gun, which is needed to complete a series of puzzles in an abandoned recycling facility filled with drones. Upon loading 3 pods into a tree-like structure, the pods begin bursting as the structure malfunctions, knocking the protagonist to the ground. The contents of the pods begin leaking onto the floor and engulf him as his vision fades to black. An unknown amount of time later, he suddenly jolts awake, freeing himself from the now hardened material that previously encased him, and begins crawling away. The second protagonist awakens inside of a pod growing on a massive, organic wall, referred to as the Genesis Wall in the art book. Breaking out of the material covering him, he falls from the pod and pulls an umbilical cord-like structure from his torso, then venturing into the ravaged terrain, littered with numerous humanoid corpses. Eventually finding a large building, the protagonist enters inside and notices a strange creature crawling across the walls nearby. He briefly encounters the creature again later when he sees it crawl into a vent above the pathway he was using. He later finds a biomechanical key, like the one the first protagonist used, and while attempting to find items required for a key puzzle, he is ambushed by the creature from before. The parasite quickly overpowers the protagonist, tearing chunks of flesh out of his torso and digging its limbs into the wounds in order to latch onto him. The protagonist picks up the tool gun attached to the end of the parasite's tail, hinting at the creature's possible origins, and continues to explore the facility. He later acquires a pistol attachment for the tool gun and an inventory creature for holding health and ammunition, all the while having the parasite dig its limbs further into his body, which gradually drains his health and begins to kill him.